3,000 years ago, a man set sail for home, and the sea would not let him go. He had survived 10 years of war in a city that no longer stands, and all he wanted now was to return to a small rocky island and the family waiting there. But between him and that island lay a world of monsters, a one-eyed giant in a cave, a witch who turned men into swine, women whose singing pulled ships onto the rocks, and a whirlpool with a mouth. We have been telling his story ever since, and for most of those 3,000 years, we have called it a fairy tale. But tonight, we are going to travel his road slowly, from one strange shore to the next, and at each one, we will ask a quieter question. Not did it happen, but rather, what was really out there? Because behind almost every monster in this old story, there is something real, a real place, a real fear, a real fragment of the ancient world, remembered slightly wrong and passed down until only the monster survived. So there is nothing to solve tonight, and nowhere to hurry to. Let the ship carry you, let the sail fill, and the water go dark and gentle beneath the hull, and we will drift together into the oldest voyage ever told. Let the sound of the sea settle over you now. Is called Odysseus, a king of a small island called Ithaca, and his troubles begin, as so many do, with a storm. For 9 days a great wind drives his ships south, away from every chart and every known shore. The war behind him and the home ahead of him both begin to feel like things he only dreamed. Then, on the 10th day, the wind falls, and out of the haze, low and green, comes a coastline no one aboard has ever seen. They are out of fresh water, so they land. They draw the ships up onto a quiet beach, and Odysseus sends 3 men inland to learn who lives in this place. It is a soft country, warm and still, and heavy with the smell of flowers. The men walk in among the people who live there, and the people mean them no harm at all. Quite the opposite. They smile, they welcome the strangers, and they offer them something to eat. A fruit, a flower, the food they themselves live on, taken from a plant the Greeks would remember only as the lotus. And the 3 men eat. What happens next is the strangest thing. There is no fight, no spell spoken, no monster at all. The men simply stop wanting to leave. One taste of the lotus, and the war they fought is gone from their minds. The home they were sailing toward is gone. The ships, the friends waiting for them, their own names, all of it softens and drifts away. And there is only this warm shore, and the sweetness on their lips, and the wish to stay here and eat and forget. When they do not come back, Odysseus goes to find them, and he sees at once what has happened, because he sees it on their faces, that heavy, contented calm. He does not argue with them. You cannot argue a man out of forgetting. He simply takes them by the arms and drags them back to the shore while they weep to stay. He binds them beneath the rowing benches, and he gives the order to go, quickly before anyone else can taste it. It is one of the shortest adventures in the whole voyage. No battle, no clever trick, and yet, for 3,000 years, it has unsettled people more than the giants that come later, because the danger here is so gentle, so easy to want. The lotus. The Greeks who told this story were not inventing a magic plant out of nothing. They were a seafaring people, and their ships really did run down the coast of North Africa, along the edge of the Sahara, past the shores of what is now Libya and Tunisia. And there really is a plant that grows there, that the ancient world called the lotus, not the water lily of the paintings, but a low, thorny desert shrub whose small fruit is sweet. The people of that coast pressed it into a honeyed food and a mild wine. The historian Herodotus sailed those same waters centuries later. He wrote of a real people he called the Lotus-Eaters, living on a real headland whose whole diet was the fruit of this tree. Some have wondered whether there was more to it, whether the fruit, or the wine pressed from it, carried something that dulled the mind. Others look further east to the blue lily of the Nile, which the Egyptians steeped in wine, and which does hold a faint, dreamlike calm within its petals. We cannot be certain. The plant of the poem may be a memory of several real things, braided together on long voyages and longer nights. But perhaps the plant was never really the point, because every sailor on that ship already knew the thing the lotus stands for. They had been away for 10 years. Every one of them, at some quiet hour, must have felt it. The wish to simply stop, to let the long journey home dissolve, and to stay somewhere warm and undemanding, and to set the burden down and forget. The lotus is not a monster that hunts you. It is the temptation to give up the journey, offered as something sweet. And that, in the end, may be the truest thing in the whole story. That the first danger Odysseus faced on the way home was not a beast at all. It was the gentle pull of forgetting where you were going. Let that shore fall away behind us now, back into its warm haze, as our bound safely below, already beginning to remember. The oars take the water. The green coast thins to a line, and then to nothing. And ahead, across the calm dark sea, waits an island of caves, and in one of those caves, something very large is sleeping. But that is another shore, and it can wait. For now, there is only the water, and the slow beat of the oars, and the quiet. Let it carry you. The next island rises green and steep out of the morning sea. It is a rich place, and an empty one. Wild goats graze on the hillsides. Vines and wheat grow untended. But there are no ships in the harbor, no smoke from cooking fires, no roads. Whoever lives here does not trade and does not travel. They keep to themselves high on the slopes, each in his own cave, answering to no one. Odysseus is curious. He has always been curious, and it will cost him again and again. He takes 12 of his best men and a skin of dark, strong wine and climbs toward the largest cave of all. It is enormous, pens of lambs and kids, great racks of drying cheese, bowls and pails brimming with milk. Everything is oversized, as if built for something far larger than a man. The sensible thing would be to take what they need and go. His men beg him to, but Odysseus wants to see the one who lives here. So they wait, and in the evening he comes home. He fills the mouth of the cave, blotting out the light. He is tall as a mountain crag, they say, and there is one detail the men will never forget and never quite explain. In the middle of his forehead, where a man has 2 eyes, the giant has only one. He drives his flocks inside, and then he lifts a boulder so vast that 20 carts could not have moved it, and sets it across the entrance. The cave is sealed, and the men are inside. His name is Polyphemus, and what follows is the darkest hour of the whole voyage. He is not troubled by his guests. He simply reaches out in the firelight and takes 2 of them and makes his supper of them there on the floor of the cave while the others watch. Then he lies down among his sheep and sleeps. Odysseus could kill him in the night. His hand is on his sword, but he stops because no man alive could move that boulder from the door. To kill the giant would be to seal themselves in a tomb. So he waits, and he thinks, and by morning he has the beginnings of a plan. He offers the giant the dark, strong wine he carried up the hill. Polyphemus has never tasted anything like it. He drinks and drinks again, and grows heavy and warm and careless, and he asks the stranger his name. Says Odysseus is nobody, nobody. When the giant finally sinks into a drunken sleep, the men take a great stake of olive wood, its tip hardened in the fire, and they drive it into that single eye. Wakes roaring. He calls out to the other giants on the mountainside, and they gather at his cave in the dark, and they call in to ask what is wrong. Who is hurting you? They say. Who is killing you? And he answers, nobody. Nobody is killing me. So they shrug and go back to their beds, and the trick, cruel and simple, has worked. In the morning, blind and in agony, the giant rolls the boulder back and sits in the doorway, spreading his hands to catch the men as they try to slip past. But Odysseus has one last idea. He ties his men beneath the bellies of the great woolly rams, 3 sheep to a man, and hidden underneath, they are carried out into the daylight, past those searching fingers, and down at last to the ships and the open sea. It is a famous escape, but it is not a clean one. Odysseus cannot resist calling back his real name across the water, a boast he will pay for through every year still to come. Some doors, once opened, do not close again. Us ask the quiet question, what was the Cyclops? One-eyed giant living in a cave on a Mediterranean island. It sounds like pure invention, and yet, on exactly those islands, there is something buried in the caves that may be the strangest clue of all. Long before there were people in Sicily or Crete or Cyprus, those islands were home to elephants. Not the great elephants of Africa, but a dwarf kind, no taller than a person, shrunk over many generations to survive on a small island. And when they died, in their thousands, many of them died in caves. Their huge bones settled into the floors and were buried and waited. Now imagine a Greek farmer or a shepherd thousands of years later digging in one of those same caves, and he uncovers a skull. It is enormous, far larger than any human head, and in the very center of the face, where you would expect nothing, there is a single great opening, round and dark, big enough to put your fist inside. We know today that this opening is the nasal cavity. It is where the elephant's trunk once attached. The real eye sockets are off to the sides, smaller and easily missed or broken away. But a person who had never seen a living elephant, who did not know such an animal existed, would see only this: an immense skull, roughly the shape of a man's, with one vast eye socket in the middle of the brow. This idea was set out most fully by the folklorist and historian Adrienne Mayer, who traced how the ancient world read its own fossils, and it is, at the very least, a haunting fit. The right size, the right islands, the single central eye, a real bone dug from the real dark that answers almost too well. We cannot prove that a shepherd holding such a skull first dreamed the Cyclops, but we do not need to. The deeper truth is already there, in our hands. Because this is what the human mind does. We find a face in the fire, and a figure in the shadow, and a giant in a broken skull. We cannot help but read meaning into what we do not understand. The ancient world was full of enormous bones, rising out of hillsides and cave floors, with no science yet to name them. And from those bones, patiently over centuries, we built our giants. So the Cyclops may be one of the oldest fossils ever described. Not a lie, and not quite a memory, a true thing, seen in the dark and made into a story so we could carry it. Let that island of caves sink back into the sea behind us. The blinded giant is a shape on the shore, growing smaller, and ahead the water opens, wide and calm and gray. Rest here a while. There is a long way still to go, and no need to hurry down any of it. The next thing they find is not an island at all, or not quite. It floats. A sheer wall of bronze rings it round, unbroken, and behind that wall stands a single great house where a king lives with his family and feasts and wants for nothing. His name is Aeolus, and the gods have given him a strange and quiet office. He is the keeper of the winds. He welcomes Odysseus kindly and listens to the whole long story of the war and the voyage for a full month. And when at last the travelers are ready to leave, he gives them a parting gift. It is a great bag made from the hide of an ox and tied shut with a bright silver cord. Inside it, Aeolus has bound all the winds of the world that might blow them off course. Only the gentle west wind he leaves free to carry them home. And it works. For 9 days and 9 nights they sail, and the west wind never fails, and it carries them straight toward Ithaca. On the 10th day, they come so close that they can see the island. They can see the fires of the people on the shore. Odysseus, who has not slept in all that time, guiding the ship himself, finally lets his eyes close. And that is when his men undo him. They have watched him carry that heavy, secret bag all this way, and they whisper to one another that it must be full of gold and silver, treasure the king gave him, that he means to keep for himself. While he sleeps within sight of home, they loosen the silver cord. The winds burst out all at once, every storm of the world freed in an instant, and they seize the ship and drive it back, screaming, across all the sea they had crossed, until Odysseus wakes to find the fires of home gone, and the floating island of the winds rising once more ahead of them. All that distance undone in the time it took to fall asleep. He goes back and begs Aeolus for help a second time, but the king turns him away at the door. A man so hated by the gods, he says, is not one I dare to help, and the doors of bronze close. what was really out there on the island of the winds. Here the ground beneath the story is solid, and you can almost stand on it. Off the north coast of Sicily lies a small chain of islands, volcanic, steep, and strange. We still call them, to this day, the Aeolian Islands, named for this very king, and one of them has never truly gone quiet. It is called Stromboli, and for as long as there have been sailors in that sea, thousands of years, it has burned, not in great eruptions, but in a slow, steady rhythm, a soft glow, and a scatter of embers from its summit every few minutes, through every night. Sailors called it the lighthouse of the Mediterranean, and steered by it in the dark. Imagine, then, being an ancient mariner in those waters, a cluster of islands where the earth itself breathes fire, and roars, and vents hot wind from within the rock, where the mountains seem to hold the storms inside them, and let them out a little at a time. Is it so strange that the sailors who passed here told of a king who kept the winds in a bag on a floating island ringed with bronze, glowing in the night? And there is something even older folded into the tale, because the sea peoples of the ancient world truly did rid the winds like a language. They knew the season of each one, its temper, its direction. To hold that knowledge was, in a real sense, to hold the winds in your hand. Aeolus gives Odysseus not a bag of magic, but a bag of understanding, the one thing that could carry him home. And that, perhaps, is the quiet ache of the whole episode. He had it. The knowledge, the wind, the way home, all of it in his hands. And it was lost, not to a monster, but to a moment of ordinary human mistrust, and a single hour of sleep. We have all been that close to something and watched it slip. Let it go gently now. There will be other winds. Let the burning island fall away behind us, and the dark water carry us on. The next harbor they find looks, at first, like a blessing. It is a strange place, that harbor. High cliffs run down on either side, close together, leaving only a narrow way in. And once a ship is inside, the water is glassy and still, sheltered from every wave. 11 of the 12 ships sail gratefully into that quiet pool, and moor together in the calm. Only Odysseus, careful as ever, ties his own ship up outside, at the very edge, where the rock meets the open sea. There is one more strange thing about this country, and the poem lingers on it. Here, the nights are almost no nights at all. The herdsman driving his flock home in the evening calls out to the herdsman, leading his out at dawn, the two of them passing on the road, because here the light of day barely leaves before it returns. A man who never slept, the poem says, could earn double wages in this land, one shift by the light of the sun and another by a light that never fully fails. Scouts are sent inland as before, and as before they find the people. But these people are not gentle. Their king is a giant. His wife is a giant, huge and terrible. And these giants, the Laestrygonians, do not welcome strangers. They eat them. They fall upon the harbor from the cliffs above. And because the 11 ships are penned in that narrow, sheltered pool, with no room to turn and no way to run, the giants simply stand on the heights and hurl down boulders, splintering the hulls, spearing the men in the water like fish. It is over quickly, 11 ships, and almost all the men who sailed in them, gone in a single afternoon. Odysseus escapes because he alone moored outside. He cuts his cable with one stroke of his sword and shouts to his crew to row for their lives, and his single ship tears out of that harbor of death into the open sea. One ship out of 12. The rest is silence and floating wreckage behind them. What lay behind the land of the giants? Much of it is beyond our reach. The Lystrigonians may be no more than a nightmare, the shape that a coastline of cannibals and wreckers took in the minds of frightened sailors. Every seafaring people has such places on its private map, shores where the ships that go in do not come out, harbors that look like shelter and turn out to be traps. That much needs no explaining. It's known that the most dangerous coast is the one that looks safest. But there is that one small, stubborn detail. The nights that are barely nights, the day that returns before it has properly gone. Some who have read this closely have wondered whether it hides a real memory, not of the Mediterranean at all, but of somewhere far to the north, because there's a place on the earth where the herdsman of the evening truly could greet the herdsman of the dawn. In the high summer of the far north, the sun barely sets. The light dips to a glow at the horizon, and then rises again, and the nights all but vanish. Did the memory of some distant northern voyage, carried home and retold and slowly misremembered, find its way into this one strange country? We cannot know. It may be a real trace of the midnight sun, or it may be a coincidence, a poet reaching for something eerie. The scholars have argued it both ways for a very long time, and the sea keeps it secret. What is certain is the loss. This is the great turning of the voyage. Odysseus had set out from the war with 12 ships and hundreds of men who trusted him. He leaves this harbor with one ship and one crew, and everything narrower and lonelier from here. The monsters, from now on, will find him with far fewer to hide behind. Let that grim coast sink away into the dark. Slowly, the worst of this night's shores is behind us now, and the sea ahead is quieter than it looks. They come, weary and grieving, to an island called Aea, and here the danger wears a gentler face than any they have met. They see the smoke first rising from a house deep in the woods, in the center of the island. Odysseus divides his frightened men into 2 companies and sends one of them, 22 in all, to see who lives there. They come through the trees to a house of smooth stone, and around it, strangely tame, move wolves and lions who do not attack but fawn like dogs and gaze at the men with something almost like sorrow in their eyes. Inside, a woman is singing and weaving at a great loom, and her voice is beautiful. She comes out and smiles and invites the men in to eat. All of them go gladly. Suspicious hangs back at the door and hides and watches. She sets before them a rich meal and a cup of honeyed wine, but into the wine she has stirred a drug, and the moment they have drunk it, she strikes them, each in turn, with a slender wand, and the men who trusted her begin to change. Bristles push through their skin, their faces lengthen into snouts, their voices fall to a low grunting. She has turned them into swine, and she drives them, weeping inside their animal bodies, into a pen and throws down acorns for them to eat. Her name is Circe, and the one man who runs back to the ship, unable at first even to speak, to tell Odysseus what he has seen. Odysseus goes alone to save them, and on the forest path he is met by the god Hermes, who gives him a single plant, pulled up by the roots. Its flower is white as milk, its root is black. The gods, says Hermes, call it moly, carry it, and her drug will have no power over you. So it goes as the god promised. Circe mixes her potion, and Odysseus drinks, and when she strikes him with the wand and cries, "Now go to your sty with the others," nothing happens. He does not change, and she falls back in wonder, for no man has ever resisted her before. In the end she yields, and swears him no more harm, and turns his men back from swine to men, and younger and handsomer than before. And they stay on her island a full year, in comfort and ease, before the longing for home stirs in them again. So what was Circe? She is one of the oldest witches in all of literature, and what she does is precise and physical and oddly believable. She does not curse the men with a word. She feeds them a drug in a cup, and it changes them. The Greek word for what she uses is pharmaka. It means drugs, potions, herbs, the same word at the root that gives us the word pharmacy. The ancient world was rich in such knowledge, and much of it was held by women, the ones who gathered and dried and steeped the wild plants, who knew which root would heal, and which would harm, and which would loosen the mind from itself. To an outsider, that knowledge could look like magic. A woman alone in a house in the woods, who could put a strong man to sleep, or ease his pain, or send his thoughts wandering into strange shapes with a single cup. It is not hard to see how the figure of the witch was born. And the men turned to swine. Some have read that too, as a kind of remembered truth. There are plants in that part of the world, and drugs made from them, that can bring on a delirium, a loss of the sense of self, where a person no longer knows their own name, or acts against their own will. Friend fall under such a thing, grunting, senseless, no longer himself, might feel exactly like watching him turn into a beast. Even the antidote has a possible echo in the real world. That plant Hermes gives moly, with its white flower and black root, has been linked by some to the snowdrop that we now know contains a natural compound that can counter certain poisons of the mind. Whether the poet knew that or only guessed it, we cannot say, but it is a strange thing that an old poem should give the hero a real flower as a real defense against a real drug. And underneath all of it lies the fear that gives the story its teeth, the fear of losing yourself, of being changed from the inside into something less than you were, of drinking the sweet cup and forgetting your own name. The men escape it this time, and they are lucky. Let that fear soften now and pass. You know your own name. You are safe and whole, and there is nothing on this island that can reach you. Let Circe's forest grow quiet, and the loom falls still. There is one more shore Circe sends them to, before they can go home, and it is the strangest of them all. She tells Odysseus that he cannot simply sail for Ithaca. First, she says, he must go somewhere no living man is meant to go. He must sail to the very edge of the world and speak with the dead. There is a prophet there, she says, among the shades, a blind seer named Tiresias, wise even in death. Only he can tell Odysseus the way home. And so the ship sets out, with a cold dread on every man aboard, toward a place where the sun never shines. They come to it at the far edge of the great river that circles the world, of mist and shadow, where a grove of dark trees stands, and where two rivers of the underworld pour down and meet. The names of those rivers are old and heavy. The Acheron, the river of woe. The Cocytus, the river of wailing. Here the boundary between the living and the dead wears thin. Odysseus does as Circe instructed. He digs a pit at the water's edge. He pours out offerings, and then the dark blood of sacrifice into the pit. And the blood calls the dead. They come up out of the dark in their crowds, young men and old, brides who died before their weddings, warriors still in their bloodied armor. They come whispering and moaning around the pit, drawn to the blood, and Odysseus must hold them back with his sword and let them drink only one at a time, for only when a shade has tasted the blood can it speak and remember and know him. The prophet comes and drinks and tells him what he needs, and the trials still to come, and a strange, quiet prophecy about how, in the end, his own death will come to him gently from the sea in a peaceful old age. But it is not the prophet that the listeners of 3,000 years have remembered. It is who comes next, because among the crowding dead, Odysseus sees his own mother. She was alive when he left for the war. He did not know that she had died, and now here she is, a shade among shades, and she does not know him until she has tasted the blood, and then she does, and she asks him how he came to this place of the dead, still living. He tries to hold her. 3 times he reaches out to take her in his arms, and 3 times she slips through his hands like a shadow or a dream, and there is nothing there to hold. That is what the dead are, she tells him gently, not flesh anymore, only the memory of a shape. So what was this land of the dead? Of all the places in the voyage, this one might seem the least real, the furthest from any map, and yet it may sit on ground you could visit. In the northwest of Greece, in the region of Epirus, there is a real river called the Acheron. It runs, dark and cold, through a gorge, and once spread into a marshy, mist-hung lake, a place the ancient world genuinely believed to be one of the mouths of the underworld. And on a low hill above that river stood a real building. The Greeks called it the Necromanteon, the oracle of the dead. People traveled there in grief to do almost exactly what Odysseus does, to speak through the priests and the rites with those they had lost, to pour offerings into the earth in the dark and wait for a voice. The ruins are still there. You can walk the stone passages and stand in the dim underground chamber where the living once came to reach across to the dead. So the land of the dead is not, in the end, a fantasy pulled from nowhere. It is a real river with a real name, and a real place beside it where real people brought their grief. The poem took the map of Greece and its oldest sorrow and made of them a shore at the edge of the world. And what happens there is the truest thing of all. A man tries to hold his mother, and his arms close on nothing. Anyone who has lost someone knows that reaching the dream where they are with you again, so clearly, and you go to take their hand and wake with your hands empty. That is not a monster. It is the oldest grief there is, given a shape so that we can look at it and bear it for a while. Let the mist close over that shore now. The dead sink back into their quiet, and the ship turns at last toward home and toward the light. Breathe. The heaviest waters are behind us. What remains are the last few trials of the sea itself. Circe has one more warning for them. Before they go, there are 3 dangers still ahead, she says, in the narrow waters near home, and the first of them will come as something beautiful. You will pass an island, she tells Odysseus, and on it live the Sirens. They sit in a meadow by the shore, and they sing, and their song is the sweetest sound in all the world. Any sailor who hears it turns his ship toward them, helpless, and is wrecked upon the rocks, and nothing you need to do, and the meadow around the singers is white with the bones of the men who could not row away. But there is a way, Circe says, to hear the song and live, and she tells him how. The island comes into view, low and green and still. Odysseus does as she said. He takes a great round of beeswax and softens it in his hands, and stops the ears of every man at the oars, so that they can hear nothing at all. But himself he leaves unstopped. He wants to hear it. He is the one man in the story who cannot bear not to know. He has his crew bind him, upright to the mast, hand and foot, with strict orders. He begs, however he pleads. They are only to tie him tighter and row. The wind drops. The sea goes glassy and calm, as if it too were listening, and the song begins. And it is not, as you might expect, a song of love or of beauty. The Sirens sing to Odysseus of knowledge. They call him by name. They tell him they know everything, all that happened at the war, all that happens anywhere on the earth. Stay, they sing, and listen, and you will sail on wiser than you came. They offer him the one thing he can never resist, not pleasure, ding. And it very nearly works. He strains against the ropes. He shouts to his men to turn the ship, to set him free. He would go to them gladly and die to hear the rest. But his men, deaf and faithful, only bind him tighter and row until the island falls away behind, and the song grows thin and fades, and the danger is past. The Sirens. We picture them often as women who are part fish, but that is a much later idea. In the oldest Greek art, the Sirens are not fish at all. They are birds, great birds with the faces of women, perched on their rocks, singing, creatures of the boundary between the human and the wild. And that gives us a place to begin. Sailors in those waters knew the sound of vast colonies of seabirds, nesting on lonely stone islands, filling the air with a strange, layered, unearthly crying that carries far over the water. Misty day, that sound, drifting from an island you cannot quite see, might be beautiful and eerie and easy to mistake for something calling to you by name. And the danger was real, whatever made the sound. The waters off southern Italy, where tradition placed the Sirens, are scattered with sheer rocks and small islands, exactly the kind of hazard that has wrecked ships in every age. A sailor drawn too close to those beautiful rocks, in a fog straining to hear, just as deadly as any monster. The bones in the meadow were real bones. Only the song was in dispute. But the heart of the Sirens is not in the birds or the rocks. It is in what they sing. They do not tempt Odysseus with his body's wants. They tempt him with his mind's. They promise to satisfy his endless hunger to know and to understand and to be told the secret of things. And that hunger, the poem seems to say, can wreck a man just as surely as any greed. The wish to know everything, even at the cost of never going home. He survives it the only way anyone can, not by being strong enough to resist, but by knowing in advance that he would not be, by having himself bound before the song began, by trusting the good sense of others to save him from his own. Let the singing fade now into the sound of the sea. The island of the beautiful voices slips behind us. You do not need to know everything tonight. You can simply rest and let the not knowing be gentle. But between this island and home, the sea narrows to a strait, and Circe warned of this too. Of the two dangers, she said, that guard that narrow water on either side, so close together that a ship must pass between them, and cannot avoid them both. On one side of the strait, Circe had said, there is a cliff, so high its top is always lost in cloud, and in a cave in the face of that cliff lives Scylla. She has 6 long necks and 6 heads, each with a triple row of teeth, and she leans out from her cave, fishing the water below for dolphins and for men. No ship has ever passed her cliff without loss. And on the other side, close enough to shoot an arrow across, is Charybdis, not a creature, but a thing the sea itself does. 3 times a day, she sucks the whole channel down into a roaring black funnel, bearing the sand at the bottom, and 3 times she spits it back up in a chaos of foam. A ship caught in that pool is gone entirely, drawn down whole into the dark. Not even a god, Circe said, could save you from Charybdis. And here is the cruelty of it. You cannot avoid them both. To steer wide of the whirlpool is to pass beneath the cliff, and the 6 hungry heads. To flee the heads is to be pulled into the whirlpool and lose everything. Circe's advice is grim and clear. Scylla's cliff. Lose 6 men and save the ship. Do not gamble the whole crew against Charybdis. Odysseus, for once, keeps a terrible knowledge to himself. He does not tell his men what waits above them on the cliff. If he had, they might have frozen at the oars in terror and doomed them all. He simply steers them close under Scylla's rock, watching the whirlpool churn on the other side, and he waits. And she takes them, 6 heads, 6 men, snatched up from the very oars, lifted writhing and calling his name into the air, and gone into the high dark cave. He says afterwards that in all his sufferings at sea, this was the most pitiful thing his eyes ever saw. To watch and steer on and be able to do nothing at all. Scylla and Charybdis. Here, more than almost anywhere in the voyage, you can put your finger on the map. Tradition places this strait at a real and famous place. The Strait of Messina, the narrow channel of water between the toe of Italy and the island of Sicily. And that strait is genuinely dangerous in genuinely strange ways. Where two seas of different heights and temperatures meet in a narrow gap, the tides do something violent. Real whirlpools and sudden rushing currents and standing waves that appear from nowhere. Ancient sailors in small ships had every reason to fear that channel and to give its worst places names and faces. Charybdis is not a monster invented from nothing. It is a real behavior of real water in a real and narrow sea. Scylla on the Italian side is a high rock and a village that still bears her name. And whatever fed the legend of the 6 heads, the danger was true enough. A ship pressed toward the rocks on one side to escape the whirlpool on the other could be smashed or could lose men to the churning water at the base of the cliff. The strait really does force you to choose between 2 dangers and to accept a loss in order to pass. And that, in the end, is why the story has lasted and why we still use its name. To be between Scylla and Charybdis is to be in the oldest kind of trouble, the kind with no safe way through, where every choice costs you something, and the only wisdom is to choose the loss you can survive and steer on and not look back. He chooses, he grieves, and he keeps his hand on the steering oar. Sometimes that is all that can be asked of anyone. Let the narrow water widen again behind us, and the sea grow calm. There is one shore left before the loneliness, and Circe had warned him of this one most sternly of all. You will come, she said, to an island where the cattle of the sun graze, and fat sheep, tended by nymphs, belonging to the god Helios, who sees all things. Do them no harm, whatever your hunger, leave them untouched, and though you will suffer, you may still reach home. But lay a hand on them, and I promise the ruin of your ship and your men. You alone might live, and even you would come home late, and broken, and alone. They come to the island, and Odysseus, remembering the warning, wants to sail straight past it. But his men are exhausted, and it is nearly night, and they beg to land, just to rest and cook a proper meal on dry ground and sleep. He makes them swear a great oath, every one of them. They will touch none of the cattle. They will eat only the food the ship still carries. And on that promise, he lets them land. And then the wind turns against them and traps them. For a month, a hard south wind blows, and no ship could put to sea against it. For a month they are held on that island, and their own supplies run out. They fish and hunt birds, anything to fill their stomachs, but hunger sharpens day after day, and the fat cattle graze the meadows in front of them, easy and forbidden. One day, while Odysseus has gone inland alone to pray and has fallen asleep, the strongest of his men gathers the others. We are starving, he says, and of all deaths, starving is the worst. Better to take our chance with the god and eat, and if he sinks our ship, for it in revenge. Better to drown quickly than to waste away here, one by one. And they are persuaded. They take the best of the sun's cattle, and they sacrifice them, and they eat. Odysseus wakes and smells the roasting meat and knows, but it is done. It cannot be undone. For 6 days they feast, uneasy, and on the 7th the wind at last turns fair, and they launch the ship and sail. But they are barely out of sight of land when a black cloud settles over them, and the sea goes dark, and a screaming storm falls out of the sky. The mast snaps, A bolt of lightning splits the ship from end to end, and the men are thrown into the water, and the sea takes them, all of them, every one, while Odysseus clings to a scrap of the broken keel and is carried away alone. He set out from the war with 12 ships. Now he has none. He set out with a crew of hundreds. Now there is only himself on a plank on the open sea. So what lay behind the island of the sun's cattle? Of all the shores, this one asks the least of our archaeology and the most of our hearts. Tradition often placed this island, too, in the waters near Sicily, and the danger it describes is the most ordinary and most real of the whole voyage. A crew trapped by a contrary wind, running out of food, tempted past endurance to break the one rule that stands between them and disaster. The cattle of the sun are a taboo, given a golden shape. Almost every people that ever lived has had them. The thing you must not touch, the last store you must not eat, the line that, if you cross it when you are cold and frightened and starving, will destroy you. And the terrible truth the story tells is that hunger and fear and the reasonable voice that says surely just this once are together stronger than almost any oath. The men are not evil. That is what makes it unbearable. They are exhausted and starving and afraid, and they choose, as most of us might, the certain meal in front of them over the distant anger of a god, and it costs them everything. Odysseus alone is spared because he alone kept the oath, but his reward is not comfort. It is to survive, to go on, when everyone he set out with is gone, to carry the whole weight of the journey home by himself. That is where we leave the ships and the crew and the long company of the voyage. From here he is alone. Let the storm blow itself out far behind us, and let the sea at last grow quiet and wide and empty. The current carries the lone man on his broken plank for 9 days, and on the 10th it sets him half drowned on the shore of an island unlike any he has seen. It is the most beautiful place in all his wanderings, a deep cave hung with vines heavy with grapes, springs of clear water running off in 4 directions through soft meadows of violet and wild parsley, and poplar and sweet-smelling cypress, where birds nest and sing. Even a god, the poem says, coming here by chance, would stop and gaze and feel his heart lift. And in the cave lives a goddess alone. Her name is Calypso. Her name means the one who hides, or the one who conceals. And she finds the broken man on her shore, and she takes him in, and she cares for him, and she falls in love with him, and she does not want to let him go. She offers him something no mortal is ever offered. She offers to make him immortal. Stay with me, she says, here on this island, at the still center of the sea, and I will lift from you the 2 great burdens of being human. You will never grow old, and you will never die. You will be young here with me, and safe and loved forever. And Odysseus says no. He stays 7 years. The poem does not pretend those years are only misery, but every day, when the goddess sleeps, he goes down alone to the shore, and nothing you need to do. And he sits on the rocks at the edge of the water, and he looks out across the sea toward a home he cannot reach, and he weeps. He would rather be a mortal man, growing old, on his own poor rocky island with his own aging wife, and one day die there, then live forever, young and beautiful, on the most perfect island in the world with a goddess, and never go home. In the end, the gods take pity and command Calypso to release him, and she obeys sadly and even helps him build the raft that will carry him away from her and from the gift of never dying. She stands on her beautiful, lonely shore and watches him go. Calypso's island. Some have tried to place it on the map, as they placed the others. The navel of the sea, they called it, meaning its very center, the loneliest point, furthest from every shore, to one small Mediterranean island or another. But this shore, more than any of the others, does not really live on a map. It lives inside a question. And the question is the deepest one the whole poem asks. Calypso offers to erase the two things that define a human life, age and death. She offers to make Odysseus safe from time itself, and the strangeness, the thing that has held listeners for 3,000 years, is that he refuses. He chooses mortality. He chooses to grow old and to lose things, and one day to die, because those are the terms on which a life is his own, and real, and shared with the people he loves. The endless, ageless safety of the island is, to him, a kind of death that only pretends to be life, a beautiful place where nothing changes and nothing matters, and no one is truly waiting for you. That is why we still tell this story, not for the monsters, but for this, for a man who was offered the thing that every frightened part of us most wants, to never grow old, to never lose anyone, to be safe forever, and who understood, sitting weeping on that perfect shore, that he did not want it, that he would trade all of it, gladly, for one more ordinary evening in his own home, with the people who knew his name. Let that beautiful island fall away now, into the calm dark sea. The one who conceals has let him go, and the way home, at last, is open. Rest here, in the quiet. The monsters are all behind us. What remains is only the sea and the long, gentle road home. From Calypso's island, the raft carries him at last to the edge of the known world, to a kind and gentle people who give him a ship and rowers and send him on his way, asleep, across the final stretch of water. And so it is that Odysseus comes home to Ithaca in the deepest part of the night, asleep, not even knowing that he has arrived. The sailors carry him ashore without waking him, and lay him gently on the sand of his own island, with the treasures the kind people gave him, and slip away. And he wakes, at dawn, on a shore wrapped in mist, and does not, at first, know where he is. After 20 years, he does not recognize his own home. There is still a long story to come on that island. He is not at the end of his troubles, even here. But that is a tale for another night. For tonight, it is enough that the sea has finally let him go, that the wandering is over, that the man who was carried past every monster in the world has, at last, been set down on his own quiet shore. Is Ithaca. It is a real island. You can sail to it today off the west coast of Greece, small and rocky and green, and it still bears the ancient name. And yet, strangely, some of the things the poem says about Ithaca do not quite fit the island that carries the name. and scholars have argued for a very long time about whether the true Ithaca of the poem lay somewhere slightly on a nearby coast that the sea and the centuries have since reshaped. Even the homecoming at the very heart of the story keeps one last small mystery of its own. But perhaps that is fitting, because Ithaca, in the end, was never only a place on a chart. The poet who first sang this story knew that, and the poets who came after, down all the long centuries, understood it too. You need to do. Ithaca is the name we give to the thing we are trying to get back to, the home at the end of the journey, the reason to keep sailing through every strange and dangerous water when it would be so much easier to stop. And the monsters, look at them now, all together from this quiet shore at the end of the road. The giant in the cave, who may have been a great bone in the dark, the witch with her cup, who may have been the oldest knowledge in the world, the singers on the rock, who may have been the sea birds and the sea's own hunger, the whirlpool with a mouth, which was only the true and terrible behavior of a narrow strait. Behind almost every one of them, we found something real, a real place, a real fear, a true fragment of the ancient world, seen in the half-light and misremembered and carried down to us, wrapped in the shape of a monster, so that we would not forget. That is what the old stories are, not lies, not quite history. They are the truth made into something we can carry, something we can hand in the dark from one tired traveler to the next. Let the ship rest now, drawn up on the sand. Let the oars lie still. The long voyage is over, and you have come, with him, all the way home. There is nothing more to do tonight, nowhere further to sail, only the sound of the sea on a quiet shore, and the mist softening every shape, and the dark coming down, gentle and kind, over the oldest journey ever told. Sleep now. The sea has let you go, and it will still be here, calm and waiting, whenever you wish to sail again. Rest.